Hey, folks. In the first chapter or two of the book, the authors are really talking about the development of hunter-gatherer people. And for the most part, most people were hunter-gatherers until in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, you have people that are going to uh, selectively harvest larger and larger grains of wheat, wheat plants and larger corn plants. Originally, all corn was this big, and humans, selecting for tastier corn and larger ears of corn have developed what we have today. So genetically modified organisms. Same thing with wheat. Wheat grasses, the original wheat bits on grass was about this big. And today we have wheat, the hulls and all are about that big. Simply selecting for those things. And that's what largely enables humans to settle down and establish settled societies and larger societies where you get a diversity of labor and stuff like that, where some people can continue to be farmers and some people can be hunters and even later on when we have development of domesticated livestock, people can do that. um, that's what really enables that development of these larger and more nutritiously dense, calorie dense foods. Enables people to do that because we can afford, in terms of the amount of calories we're producing, we can afford for some people to be just farmers, and other people are going to specialize into other trades. Not everybody does that though, and we know this. We still in the world still have today, not a lot, but we still have today some societies that are typically operating as hunter-gatherers. Um, and in his book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, a guy named Jared Diamond, there we go, uh, he wrote that in 1999, or published it in 1999. Uh, and in Guns, Germs, and Steel, Diamond spent a lot of time, not 100% of the time, but he spent a lot of time exploring why in the world are some people still, operating as hunter gatherers or still fairly impoverished, and other people are doing pretty well, taking classes over the internet and stuff like that. Why is there such a diversity of sort of a situation for these people in the world? And he traced it back a lot uh, to luck, the luck of people, being born into those societies that uh, thousands of years ago were, you know, developing more settled societies, and other societies were still operating in that kind of a hunter-gatherer sort of a thing. Back in the 1600s, 1700s and 1800s, most, especially Europeans, had this idea that this was based on race, that because of your race, that determines, how industrious you were and how, able to sort of, develop your society. Uh, they argued that it all came down to race, and unfortunately, we still have some people that buy into that. Um, what they were doing though is they were engaging in the logical fallacy of, thinking that correlation equals causation. You know, Europeans had been doing pretty well. They had been colonizing all of these other territories throughout the world. It must be because of their race. It must be because the Europeans typically lacked a lot of melanin in their skin, causing us to be pale. That's not really the case at all. That's a terrible idea. It doesn't make any sense at all. Uh, you know, we know a lot of European people of European ancestry that are not industrious at all. So since that's not the case, what's kind of the argument there? In his book, Diamond argued that race is not at all tied to intelligence or industriousness. Uh, a lot of the people that he based his book on, he spent a lot of time in New Guinea, and a lot of those people in New Guinea that he spent a lot of time with were still living as hunter-gatherers. And he argued very clearly that they had to be very knowledgeable about animal behavior, to be able to track animals, to be able to understand, their kind of methodology of where they're going to move to, and how they behave, to be able to hunt them. We have probably some hunters in this class, and you know you have to kind of have an understanding of how deer and turkey and stuff like that act in order to be a successful hunter. So those people in New Guinea that were hunters, that were primarily hunter-gatherers, they had to have an understanding of that. Most of those people in New Guinea that Diamond visited with and spent a lot of time with, their primary source of calories came from a plant called wild sago. Uh, this takes about 3 days to process wild sago into a sort of a flour that you can do other things with to consume. That's a pretty hard row to hoe to be able to work on this stuff for 3 days to process a relatively calorie light kind of a food stuff, and then to make some more foods with it. So these people aren't lazy. They're not, industrious. They're not unintelligent or anything like that. But the problem, though, is that in New Guinea, one, there weren't a lot of those kind of wheat product, those wheat crops that they could kind of select for to be able to produce calorie dense nutritional food that they could then kind of segment their society and grow a larger, more stable society. Likewise in New Guinea, like we'll see in the Americas as well, they didn't have large domesticatable animals. There's no horses, there's no cattle. I think there might have been some dogs in New Guinea, but that's the largest kind of domestic animal that they had. And dogs aren't really good for working as far as plowing or anything like that. So it really, a lot of what Diamond was arguing, it depends on the luck of the draw. Societies that emerged in the Fertile Crescent did better. They had more ability to segment their society and specialize into different forms of labor. People in New Guinea, somewhat people in the Americas didn't have that same luxury. Uh, the people in the Americas did a little bit better than the people in New Guinea because they're able to select for different forms of corn and grains and stuff like that, but they didn't have large domesticatable animals. And so they did better than the people in New Guinea, but not quite as well as the people of European descent. So it really doesn't come down to race. Your race doesn't determine how industrious or how intelligent you are. We're all a mix of all kinds of stuff. Go and do your DNA with one of the DNA companies, and you'll come back with all kinds of cool stuff. I've got a pretty high degree of Neanderthal DNA in me, and it has some effect on me, I guess, but not a lot. So race doesn't have too much of an impact on anything. But anyway, so kind of check some of that stuff out. Guns, Germs, and Steel. There's a really good documentary on National Geographic. Did a really good film on that explored this concept pretty heavily. Typically, that's usually available on YouTube. Sometimes it gets taken down from copyright issues, but usually it pops back up a little bit later. So if you're interested in that kind of idea of race and the development of societies and stuff like that, give that a check out.